There are some residents living in Alaska within the Arctic Circle. Their daily lives consist of fishing, hunting, and raising their children, enjoying an unrestrained life. However, they must be fully prepared at all times, as every day could be their last. A trace of chill fills the air, a sign that winter is approaching. His name is Chip, and he has spent 25 years here. This is his lifelong wife, Agnes, a pure-blooded Inuit. They are busy storing food for the winter. Now, Chip is heading to the lake they rely on for survival. Late autumn is the last chance to catch whitefish, but setting nets on thin ice is also one of the most dangerous activities of the year, where death can strike at any moment. His mother-in-law, brother-in-law, and his brother-in-law's girlfriend all lost their lives here. Chip uses an iron bar to test the thickness of the ice. Ice less than 2.5 centimeters thick cannot bear the weight of an adult, so he must be extremely careful. The ice under his feet is about 5 to 6 centimeters thick, making it very safe. Soon, his wife arrives to help. After testing, the ice ahead is only 2.5 centimeters thick, so they cannot go any further. With his family present, Chip holds a brief meeting. After explaining the tactics, he starts his chainsaw and cuts several rectangular holes in the ice. Then, he takes out a long fishing net, ties a yellow rope to the front, and threads it through these holes one by one. It needs to pass through over a dozen holes continuously until the last one. This process is very troublesome. They must use an iron hook to accurately catch the rope, which is a true test of eyesight and skill. After some effort, they finally complete the task. After a short wait, they can start hauling the net. As the net is pulled up, one plump whitefish after another is dragged out of the water. It is currently the spawning season for whitefish, and their meat is incredibly delicious. Chip's family uses a large mesh net. He will release the small, thin fish and only keep the large ones. They follow the principle of sustainable use, which is exactly nature's way of survival. This fishing technique is inherited from their ancestors and passed down from generation to generation. Not only has Chip mastered it, but he will also teach it to his children. Looking at today's fruitful harvest, the family's faces are filled with happiness. They choose to process the fish directly on the ice. Although they have fish to eat today, good luck won't favor them every time. One day, Chip will also die, but he doesn't fear death. He only fears the pain before dying. Although the sun is gradually setting, Chip's family is still working hard to catch fish. The more food they store, the easier this winter will be. But now, the fishing net is stuck. Several people try pulling it, but it won't budge. After multiple failed attempts, Chip goes over to investigate and finds that a float is stuck in an ice crack. He grabs an axe and starts smashing the ice. It takes him a solid half hour just to chop a hole. Then, with one person pulling the rope and the other two poking, they finally manage to straighten the float. They continue to pull the net. Many large fish are hauled out, continuously flopping on the ice. Chip's family eventually returns fully loaded. The next day, he wants to stockpile meat for the winter, but hunting requires crossing the river ahead. The current ice layer isn't fully frozen yet, so for safety reasons, he cannot risk the journey. Every year around this time, they are stranded at home, waiting for the harsh winter to arrive. Their food comes from the caribou meat they previously worked hard to store. Chip takes a sniff. Although it has an aged smell, the meat hasn't gone bad. He and his son carry the caribou back into the house. The men are responsible for hunting, while the women handle the butchering. Agnes begins to sharpen her knife. This is a precious blade passed down from her mother, called an ulu knife, and it is exceptionally sharp. She first cuts off the tendons, then the spine, followed by the brisket. She then flips the caribou over and repeats the same steps. With her skilled knife work, she effortlessly finishes butchering the caribou. The best cuts of meat are saved for dinner. In this region, trading caribou meat is a completely legal activity. Chip usually trades some meat for items like ammunition, gasoline, or spare parts. Here, meat is the hard currency. Agnes sets her sights on the caribou hide, planning to use this part to make tall boots because the leather here is the toughest. Retaining the hair on the hooves makes the boots even warmer. A pair of tall boots requires 6 caribou hooves, while the fur from the front legs covers the uppers. By sewing them together, wearing such boots also helps with setting traps, because the lingering scent will trick animals into thinking it's a caribou, acting as a decoy. The next morning, Chip wants to trap some foxes. Due to the rising river levels in the summer and the increasing amount of garbage in the village, this has caused the local fox population to thrive. Previously, there was also a rabies outbreak in the village, which prompted the village chief to offer a bounty. Catching a fox can earn a $40 reward. This is killing 2 birds with 1 stone, getting the bounty and being able to sell the fox pelt. A few days ago, a villager named Rodney saw many foxes. After gathering intelligence from him, Chip begins to set traps. He uses frozen fish as bait. Since these foxes are highly intelligent, Chip creates a double loop trap, placing a concealed trap right next to another one, hoping for a good result. Early the next morning, Chip goes to check the traps, only to find them completely empty. Even the bait hasn't been touched. However, there are fox footprints nearby. It seems the fox's cunning exceeds imagination. Rather than wasting time, it's better to dismantle these traps. Chip plans to wait until the river is completely frozen before crossing to hunt caribou. Meanwhile, Agnes prepares to trade whitefish for some necessities. Here, bartering is the most common form of trade. She goes to a neighbor's house and exchanges fish for whale blubber. In the freezing Arctic, consuming fat is essential to maintain body heat. Today's dinner includes cranberries, whale blubber, eggs, fish heads, and vegetables, ensuring a balanced diet. The whole family happily enjoys this hearty dinner. The Arctic Circle is one of the most desolate places in the world, synonymous with savagery and blood, yet there are some freedom-seeking residents who choose to settle here. His name is Eric. After graduating from high school, he moved to the Brooks Range and has lived in Alaska for 10 years. He is a certified local guide and outfitter. He never buys meat from the supermarket because he goes hunting himself. There are wolf tracks from a week ago left in the snow. He follows the trail and discovers bear tracks as well. These tracks will lead him to his prey. Sure enough, he soon spots a medium-sized caribou herd. He approaches slowly, trying to pick out a mature caribou without a calf. During this season every year, caribou are the best prey. Their meat is plump and tastes excellent. Once within range, he raises his rifle and aims. The caribou herd still hasn't sensed the danger. As the target gets closer, he pulls the trigger, but unfortunately, it's a misfire. The freezing weather has caused the rifle's firing pin to freeze, and the caribou finally realize the danger. They quickly run away. Here, gun malfunctions are common occurrences. Today's hunt ends in failure, but Eric is not discouraged. That's just life in the wilderness, and he is already accustomed to this lifestyle. The next day, he fixes his gear and sets out on the hunting trail again. The morning temperature is -4 degrees Celsius. Once he leaves these woods, the temperature will drop to -20 degrees. He hides his backpack and sled next to a tree and chooses to travel light. He walks through the thick snow, tracking the caribou's footprints. Before long, a lone caribou appears ahead. Eric is ecstatic. He walks up slowly, then crouches down to aim. The atmosphere grows heavy. A single well-placed shot ends its life. This caribou will provide him with food for 3 weeks. Because the heat from the internal organs is too high, he needs to remove them promptly to prevent the meat from spoiling. After cutting open the belly, he pulls out a large cluster of organs. First, he cuts out the heart and uses the hot blood to warm his freezing hands. The heart is also a delicious food source. To prevent it from freezing solid, Eric stuffs the heart back inside, then picks up the caribou, places it on the sled, and starts his journey back. By the time he gets home, the sky is already darkened. He sharpens his knife and prepares to skin the caribou. Just like taking off clothes, he can strip the hide all the way down in one fluid motion. The caribou reveals a healthy and meaty physique. Then he begins to butcher the meat. The tongue is one of the most delicious parts and his absolute favorite. It must be preserved carefully. Next is a tender cut of meat from the body, which is perfect for roasting. After sorting and processing all the meat, he feels a bit hungry, so he stir-fries a delicious pot of caribou heart with some side dishes. He sits down to enjoy the fruits of his labor. The next day, the sun is shining brightly. Eric goes out hunting again. This time, he locks onto grouse and foxes as his prey. Soon, he spots fox tracks leading to a willow thicket, an area where hares are active. Holding his shotgun, he walks into the bushes. After some searching, he gets close to a running fox, crouches down, and fires a shot. Unfortunately, the first shot misses. He calms himself down and takes aim again. This shot hits accurately, and the fox instantly falls to the ground, bringing him a surge of joy because a fox is worth $40. On the way back, he encounters another fox lying on the ground. How could he miss such an opportunity? With just one shot, he easily bags it. Getting two foxes in one swoop puts him in a great mood. At the same time, he also notices grouse tracks on the snow. He wants to catch one or two grouse for dinner. After searching around, he hears bird calls ahead. Sure enough, he spots two grouse in the bushes. He aims and fires two consecutive shots, successfully taking down both birds. A delicious dinner is finally secured. This has truly been a wonderful day. He returns fully loaded and starts preparing dinner. He skillfully processes the grouse, removing the organs and separating the meat, then takes out his treasured onions to stir-fry them. This is one of his favorite dishes. At only 29 years old, although he lives alone, his life is quite refined and his cooking skills are masterful. As the aroma fills the kitchen, he begins to enjoy this meal. This is a rich and joyful day for him. He loves the Brooks Range. It has given him the life he desires. The Yukon River is a mighty and powerful river that freezes over in November or December every year. His name is Andy. He has lived in Eagle for 30 years. This is his wife, Kate. They live on the banks of the Yukon River, 22 kilometers away from the town. Every winter, blocks of ice block their path to the town. In order to travel outwards, they must forge a trail for the dog sled. Kate often says that the Yukon River will eventually take them away. They must plan ahead and not act hastily. They raise 25 sled dogs. As the old saying goes, maintain an army for 1,000 days to use it for a single moment. This is exactly what the sled dogs are for. Under his wife's worried gaze, Andy drives the sled out. The sled dogs howl, their momentum overwhelming, like a massive army charging forward. Andy feels like a general going to war. Even though this journey might be a point of no return, for example, if he accidentally falls into an ice hole, he would be swept away by the current and disappear forever. This is his choice. Pursuing a life of freedom always comes with a price. Andy says, "You can devour my body, but you cannot bind my soul." The dogs run tirelessly, and the sled advances at an astonishing speed. The freezing wind makes Andy's cheeks ache, but he enjoys this freedom. The vast wilderness carries his thoughts, and his mind reaches unprecedented tranquility. But suddenly, he orders the dogs to stop. It turns out the ice ahead is extremely dangerous. The ice layer here is thin, and there are water currents underneath, causing the ice blocks to be uneven and the path to be severely blocked. Andy goes alone to inspect it and finds that the ice is only 5 centimeters thick, and the river water next to it is clearly visible. It is extremely unsafe here. He picks up his walkie-talkie, contacts his wife Kate to inform her of the situation, and decides to turn back. The dogs are eager to return home. Finally, before dark, they arrive safely at home. These sled dogs are an important part of the family. Transporting wood and drinking water relies entirely on them. At the same time, their appetites are astonishing, with the annual cost of dog food ranging from $4,000 to $6,000. This year, because he switched to a different brand of dog food, he miscalculated the amount, leaving them with only half a bucket of dog food now. Once this meal is gone, there will be nothing left. And now that the roads are blocked, he cannot go to the town to restock dog food. So, he contacts a merchant, hoping to have some dog food airlifted. Of course, this will cost more money, which makes Kate frown. Andy sets off. He has to head to the center of the lake, which is the only place a plane can land. This is also fraught with danger because the smooth surface of the lake reflects light, making it difficult for pilots to judge their altitude. However, the pilots here are all experienced veterans because the inexperienced ones are already dead. This time, the pilot also lands safely, bringing 8 bags of dog food, enough for 3 weeks. Andy's family usually lives frugally. Most of the money is spent on their dogs. On the way home, Andy discovers a beaver lodge and decides to set a trap. He starts his chainsaw and cuts a hole in the ice. Poor beavers are loved by all. Not only can their meat be used to feed the dogs, but their pelts can also be sold. Through measuring, he finds the water in this area is about 50 to 60 centimeters deep, which is an ideal depth for setting a trap. Since beavers love to eat aspen wood the most, Andy prepares this delicious food for it to have a full meal before sending it on its way. When the beaver swims around, it will be caught by a wire snare around its neck and eventually suffocate. He places a wooden cross structure into the ice hole and secures it with ice blocks, then drives the snowmobile back home. The next day, Andy heads straight to the beaver's lodge. Overnight, the hole has frozen shut again, and it is pitch black inside, making it impossible to see anything. He starts chipping at the ice. After breaking and removing the ice blocks, he pulls out the cross structure. He can see bite marks on the aspen wood. Half of the bark has been chewed off. Unfortunately, he didn't catch the beaver. He readjusts the trap and puts it back into the ice hole, planning to check it again tomorrow. The lady staying in the motel is named Sue. 3 months ago, she was living at the Kavik camp on Alaska's North Slope, where she was the only resident. While fixing her tent, she accidentally broke her leg and had to go to town for surgery. Now that her injury has somewhat recovered, she is preparing to return home. She heard that grizzly bears have been spotted at her camp, so she has already prepared the necessary weapons. She drives to the airport and boards the plane home. However, shortly after takeoff, a foul smell emanates from the plane. It turns out the plane has malfunctioned, and she has to continue waiting. The next day, the plane is repaired and successfully takes off. As the plane flies over the camp, her heart is full of anxiety, not knowing if there are still bears at her home. As soon as she gets off the plane, Sue is ready to fight the grizzly bears. As she makes her way to the camp, the bear paw prints in the snow become clearer. This is clearly not a good sign. She quickly loads her gun, turns on her headlamp, and resolutely walks into a pitch-black room. Although there are no grizzly bears in the room, something worse has happened. Someone has been here. After a careful inspection, Sue finds that many things have been frozen or tampered with. She has a bad premonition. She hurries to check her fuel inventory, which determines whether she can safely survive the harsh winter. As Sue checks the fuel, her heart grows heavier and she becomes increasingly angry. The fuel she bought with a year's hard-earned savings now only has 1,300 liters left, barely enough for 10 days. In such a freezing winter, having no fuel means certain death. She hates the thief to the core, as they completely disregarded her survival. A murderous look gradually appears in her eyes. Sue adjusts her emotions, knowing that a blizzard is imminent. She must buy enough fuel, even though it will cost more money, because life must go on. She calls Pilot Bob and requests an emergency fuel delivery. Soon, the plane arrives, but the fierce winds make landing extremely difficult. Bob circles in the sky twice before finally finding a chance to land successfully. He brings 2 barrels of fuel, but this is still only a 10-day supply. She will have to figure something else out. Watch closely. This man tightly grabs the caribou's neck, and the two are engaged in hand-to-hand combat. This is a precious piece of footage of an Inuit catching a caribou. As winter arrives, the stock on Chip's family meat rack is running low. It's time to get some fresh meat. Now is exactly the season for caribou migration. They happen to be near the village, and the river is completely frozen over, so they can cross the river safely. Chip's family has a clear division of labor. The best hunter is his wife Agnes. Chip only needs to do the assisting work. Agnes is a pure-blooded Inuit who thoroughly enjoys the hunting process. At the same time, this is also a rare alone time for the couple. Soon, the two reach their destination. To prevent the roar of the snowmobile from scaring away the caribou, they choose to proceed on foot. This place is downwind of the caribou, so the animals cannot smell the human scent. Ahead is a small caribou herd grazing on the moss beneath the snow, completely unaware of the approaching danger. Agnes crouches down and takes aim. She is very confident in her marksmanship. Accompanied by a gunshot, the caribou herd flees in panic. It turns out that the wind speed affected the bullet's trajectory, allowing the caribou to luckily escape. They start running up the mountain, with the hunters chasing behind. Due to their tight financial situation, if they burn a whole day's worth of gas and get nothing, this hunting trip would be considered a complete failure. The couple cannot accept such a loss. When they reach the top of the mountain and look down, they find that the caribou have calmed down. Agnes raises her rifle again, her eyes fixed entirely on the caribou, though her manicure is due for a redo. As she pulls the trigger, a gunshot rings out instantly, but she misses the target once more. The wind speed today is simply too strong, and having continuously spooked the caribou herd, they can no longer continue hunting. So the two choose to return home. Checking the weather forecast on the computer, they see that Thursday will be a good day. The hunting location is set at the lake area at the foot of the mountains, where there are about 1,000 caribou. Chip's hunting skills originate from his father-in-law. Agnes's family was once full of master hunters, possessing a wealth of traditional skills. Now Chip and his wife are applying what they've learned, and in the future, they will pass these skills down to their children and grandchildren. On Thursday, the two set out again and finally find a migrating herd of caribou. Agnes aims quietly, waiting for the perfect moment. Although the caribou are constantly moving, Agnes pulls the trigger. One caribou suddenly stops. It's obvious that it has been hit. Though it still struggles to move forward, it gradually falls behind the herd. The couple walks over unhurriedly. Now it's Chip's turn to step in. He goes forward, pins down the caribou's head, and uses a small knife to end its suffering. Although killing feels unpleasant, Chip's family needs to survive. They always hold a deep respect for their prey, thanking it for its sacrifice. After a prayer, the two process the caribou on the spot. They quickly skin it and remove the internal organs. In extremely cold weather, they eat the kidneys or liver to keep their bodies warm. This is the survival way of the Inuit, relying on the gifts of nature for food. Waking up in the morning and having a cup of coffee is a refreshing way to start the day. Eric loves this life, but he has run out of drinking water. Living in the Arctic Circle, residents fetch water from the river, where they can find the purest mineral water. He goes to the river, but finds the situation is not ideal. The bank has already frozen over, but the ice isn't thick enough. If he falls into the river, the consequences would be severe. So, he has to head back home first and wait for night to fall. Riding his snowmobile, he heads to another water collection point. Fetching water in winter is a very dangerous activity, and Eric must be extremely cautious. He definitely doesn't want to take a winter swim. Standing on a small piece of shelf ice, the crunching sound can be heard. Many people cannot understand him, but he loves this free and unrestrained life. After all, life is short, and enjoying it is the right thing to do. By the time he finishes his chores, it's already 1:30 a.m. The next day, Eric still has many things to do. Due to the extreme cold in the Arctic Circle, he has to constantly burn wood, which has caused a section of his stovepipe to wear out. Now, he needs to replace it with a new one to prevent sparks from setting the house on fire. To add a damper switch to the new stovepipe, he uses a hand drill to make a hole. Back inside, he takes down the old pipe and installs the new one. He reignites the firewood, and it seems to work pretty well. Because he needs to burn 3 to 4 boxes of wood every day, his stockpile is running low, and he has to go out to gather more. There are 2 types of wood he can harvest here, dead spruce trees and green wood. He arrives at a frozen stream, pulls out his chainsaw, and starts felling trees. In just a few breaths, a small tree crashes to the ground. He quickly trims the excess branches, ties the log to the back of his snowmobile, steps on the gas, and speeds away. Snow flies in all directions, and the log trails closely behind. But driving too fast comes with risks. The snowmobile crashes straight into a small tree. Fortunately, he is uninjured and continues driving home. Under the night sky, he prepares to chop firewood. Just his strides give off a real tough guy vibe. He starts the chainsaw, cuts the trunk into several short logs, places a block on the chopping block, and swings his axe with force. The log splits instantly. After hours of hard work, he finally finishes chopping the firewood. Although exhausted, he feels refreshed because this is what a real man should do. At the break of dawn, Andy sips his coffee while greeting his sled dogs. He has an important task today, to clear the trail leading to the town of Eagle. With a command, the sled dogs charge forward bravely. Andy is like a general marching to war, while the dogs left behind at home howl in support, creating an echoing chorus. The dog sled team advances with unstoppable momentum, but the good times don't last long. The heavy snow makes every step difficult, and soon there is no path left. Andy picks up a pickaxe and starts working, while the dogs wait quietly beside him. After working for half the day, Andy turns around to find he is still right by his front door. It's truly exhausting. Now that the path is cleared, they can continue their journey. The dogs are a bit sluggish, and it takes the lead dog jumping around a few times before they react, and the team sets off again. However, the road is very rough, which is a huge test for the sled dogs. The lead dog is a sharp-eyed husky. Under his leadership, the sled dogs are full of energy, bounding effortlessly through the snow, causing Andy on the sled to bump so hard his dentures almost fall out. Before long, they enter a section of the trail that has already been cleared. Residents here each take responsibility for breaking a section of the trail, and when connected, it forms a complete path, making travel much easier. The sled dogs speed up and soon arrive in the town of Eagle. This is a peaceful town nestled by the mountains and river, with simple and kind-hearted residents. After arriving, he runs his errands, first going to the local post office to pick up a case of beer he bought, and finally heading to the supermarket to get a few plastic runners to build a new sled. After finishing his tasks, Andy begins his journey home. It takes some time, but he finally makes it back before dark. His wife has been waiting at the door, and seeing him return safely, she finally breathes a long sigh of relief. After the hard work, it's time to relax. There is nothing better than an ice-cold beer. The two enjoy their beer while relishing their simple yet enviable life. The sled dogs worked very hard today, so Andy rewards them with some dried fish to help them replenish their energy.